It's doing it. Oh, we got 2 hours? Is that what that's saying?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Oh, it's so stressful. Oh my God. All right, we have one more person. Let me learn who you are. Other than Erica, I don't know anybody. Natalie. Okay. You're Natalie. Okay. Linda. Jasmine.
Jasmine.
Okay. So Linda, we'll give her a couple more minutes. And we'll try and...
Now, so is this going to be a every Thursday thing or every what?
I'll show you that ish, yeah, for the first few weeks, but not for the whole semester.
Okay, and then 5 o'clock is the latest that we can have a class?
Yeah, I mean
4:30 is the earliest I mean?
that depends on you guys. I mean, it's scheduled for 4:30. I don't know. It depends on where your practice.
Obviously, you can sports too?
I'm a GA.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
for
so
sport,
softball.
softball, yeah,
So
with the
we're busy all
basketball.
day. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So if everybody is free at 4, I could start at 4, but it's going to depend on practice schedules and things like that.
That's the only reason why I'm asking.
Hi, Linda.
Yeah, I was trying to find the class.
Don't worry, perfect. Come and sit down here by Erica for me. Okay, good. So, you're the only 4 at the moment that have agreed that a class is a good idea. Most people it is, I think, easier to do some of this face-to-face, and it gives you an opportunity to ask questions rather than having to make time to come find me in the office and all that sort of thing. So, this is Erica. And this is Natalie, Jasmine, Linda. So even I should be able to work out who you are relatively quickly, and I'm about a minute. So I'm going to just chuck this outside because people don't think about the fact that we have class in here.
Yeah, I'm looking for started at 4. What's the earliest you start?
It depends on her during the day. I don't know what her classes are in the morning. Honestly, it's dark. Yeah, way to different times. You have practice at different times when you have individuals. It's all.
But you always open at 4:30. See, kid, do you play sports?
No. I'm open anytime. So.
Okay, cool. So that's what you do. We're good. I mean, throughout the day.
To go at 4?
But I want to make sure she's okay.
Yeah.
We want to go at 4 instead of 4:30.
Yeah, we have practice and stuff, so we're trying to, our coach is like, no, you know, it's practice, same time.
You have practice later?
Well, not today, no, but when we
Right.
start,
Right.
we start.
Yeah, stand up for yourselves, because those coaches will go, well, you're going to be at practice, and you go, no, I don't, I have to go to the class. I'm just trying to work out a way of making this a bit better, but the coaches love me.
Yeah, I emailed you, our coach emailed you too, we had a compliance meeting today, and I was like, we have to go to class.
Oh, when did you email? Because I literally looked at the email at about 3:45.
3. We looked at 3 something.
In Blackboard or in Outlook?
Outlook.
Okay, rule number 1. Camera. Rule number 1. If you're emailing me about class, email me through Blackboard. And I will show you that right now. I'm going to do a quick summary run around of the Blackboard site so that everyone knows where you can find things. I'm just going to try turning this. The light switches, so the electrical system in this building is a little challenging. These are my options for lights. That or that. If that comes up on the camera, okay, I think that will be all right.
So if you guys are down to go at 4, that's fine. There's practice.
And this has to be for half an hour or an hour?
Sorry?
How long would this have to be? Started at
At most an hour and a half. I'm going to try and get us done in an hour most weeks. That's my goal. Partly because I like to eat at 7 o'clock and be in bed by 8:30. So if we're here till 7:30, it's going to kind of mess with my sleep schedule. So, okay, let's pull up that.
My school is South Carolina.
Oregon, that's a big change. Okay, this weekend it's going to be 100, so be careful.
That's the scenery. I'm not used to seeing tumbleweeds.
Yeah, they actually exist, and then
a little bit of it.
you'll walk into Walmart, and in the car park there'll be a horse box with a horse with a saddle, and in Walmart there will be a cowboy, a real one. It's like, okay, wait, it's very bizarre. It takes some getting used to. But it's interesting, and we get the best sunsets on the planet. So, okay, so this is what you see here. Over on the left here is an email messages. So if possible, it's better for you to try to contact me about class there than through Outlook, because I get piles of junk mail in Outlook, and once you've dropped off the screen, I get no warning that you've sent me an email. But here, of course, I always get that little message that there's an email waiting for me. So if you can use this, there is a Blackboard app for a smartphone if you have that. Like there is an Outlook one, and so if you download that app, you'll be able to get to this message system rather than the Outlook one. You can also email each other through there. If you want to set up a study group or anything like that, you can do that there. I've got the discussion board. Quite a lot of you have already done the introduction, which is great. That gives me an idea of where everybody's from and what they're doing, and you can always ask me questions there about the content, because again, if you put the question here and I answer it, everybody gets the benefit. If you've got something personal you want to ask me, then do it through email. All right. Class notes and assignments are down here. So I'm going to run quickly through the syllabus. There's only a couple of things that I want to point out. The first one is that the final for this class is a live presentation of the research that you'll be doing later in the semester. Okay? So the last 2 weeks of class, the last week of term plus the finals week session has to be live. Okay? So for those of you on campus, that isn't a problem because you're here. You just need to make sure that you've made that date with the diary with coaches or whoever you're working with. For the people who are at a distance, that's going to mean that they have to dial in through Collaborate, but they have to be available live during class time. Okay?
Question?
Sure.
Okay, so say for instance, how do you do if we have like games or something, and on that date you will have a game or something?
We'll work around it. I mean, you'll get the option of which day you want to present. So that's a first come, first serve. So if you know you have something, just get in early and pick the other week. If that doesn't work either, we'll sort something out. Yeah. That hasn't happened before, but if it does, we'll just sort it out. It doesn't matter. You know, I mean, if you've got an actual game, that's different to a practice. I mean, if it's a practice, I expect you to be here, and if coach doesn't like it, I'll deal with him. But if it's a game, then obviously that's a whole different situation. Okay? The people who are at distance, who are coaches, you try not to book both those days with games.
And for these presentations, are we doing it around this time, or is there like
It'll be we are really, really full. So it's going to be difficult to get you all done, actually. So I'm probably going to have to cut it down to a 10-minute presentation. So it'll be 10-minute slots from whenever we choose to start the class through to close to 7, probably, to get everybody done. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I've never had 20 people in this class, so I'm not quite sure how this is going to work. This stuff, it's going to be a challenge. Okay. So you can read most of this for yourself. Let me just, just go over the 2 books that you need. The textbook for the class is this little research methods book. It's really easy to read. It's very applied. That's why I like it. It's not too techy, but it gives you lots of ideas of how to manage stuff. And then an APA manual, which you will need under your pillow for the rest of your life as a grad student, right? So, unfortunately, they have not come out with a 7th edition yet, which is a shame because I don't like this edition. But
How much are they?
I have no idea.
There's not the 7th edition.
The 7th edition just has not turned up. I thought they would because things have changed so much with all the online stuff. But this has been out for donkeys now since my 3rd or 4th year here. So I don't know. But the thing is, and what you might have to point out to faculty, because they'll forget, is that if you start in this class with this edition, if we get a 7th edition, you're not held to the rules in the 7th edition. You're held to this one, okay? So if you start getting, if a 7th edition comes out during your 2 years, and you start getting deductions for APA errors from faculty, you just need to prod them, or let me know and I'll prod them. Okay, because that's always been kind of an unwritten rule in the program. So, and since I'm the only one that's been here forever, they may not remember that. Okay. What else? There's piles of other readings on Blackboard. You've probably already seen some of them. Each article for each week for the article summaries is there. You can't see them yet because I haven't the time to open as you hand in this week's one, so that you're not looking too far ahead until I've got you some feedback. Okay. What else do you need off of here today? So the article summaries, this week we'll do a practice one. Okay, so the one you hand in on Saturday, it's got to be by 11 on Saturday, I think. That's a practice. So I'll grade it for you, but that grade won't count because for most of you, not all of you, I know there are a couple of people in the program who have done some grad work, but for most of you, what we do in this class is going to be new stuff. How many of you have used an APA manual? Yeah, a little bit, right? So this is like a huge learning curve. I wouldn't put you up on a trampoline and say do a backflip and expect it to be right the first time you tried it, okay? And for the athlete people, sometimes it's difficult because you expect to be perfect. It's not. It's going to be wrong, and that's all there is to it. So you're just going to have to grit your teeth and keep plugging on with it being wrong, all right? Because it takes practice. It's just like going and hitting a ball, okay? So the article summaries are in the first half of the semester, and this is like the practice for the annotated bibliography later in the semester, okay? So the article summaries are going to teach you how to condense a great big article down into many, many, many less words, okay? The APA workshop and the boot camp are media site videos. The links are on Blackboard for you, and there's no work to do other than watch them and learn, right? And I get a report on who watched them. So whilst that doesn't mean necessarily that you were actually watching it, just that you had it turned on, I do get a report. So that's what your grade, that's what the 5% is based on there, is the report that I get. So if you turn it on and off and you're logged for 2 minutes, you get 0. If you're logged for, this is I think 54 minutes, so if you're logged for 25 minutes, you get 2.5%, right? So that's how we do it. And then the purpose statement and a couple of references are due just before midterm, and we'll start talking about that. Once we've done the library introduction, I want you to start spending an hour or 2 a week jumping into the databases and finding articles about things you're interested in, all right? Because you're going to have to come up with your own purpose statement for a piece of research that you hypothetically would run, right? If any of you choose a thesis option, this ought to be the thing that you would collect data on for a thesis, okay? And we'll talk a lot more about how to do that, what are the things you're looking for. You can't repeat someone else's statement, it's got to be something that's unique, all right? But the first thing is get into the databases and start looking for articles about things you're interested in, okay? And then we'll do a lot more detail about the ANNOBIBs way later on, okay? And then your presentation. So that's how your grade is broken up. Most of the grade is in the second half of the semester, right? Deliberately, because this half of the semester is a big learning curve for you all, right? So you've got to work hard on these summaries, but if you don't do them very well, they're not going to crucify you, right? It's the learning from the summaries that's important, because you're going to transfer that directly to your ANNOBIB. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so everything should run unless I get sick or something silly happens. You know, if we get a snow day in the middle of October and they shut the university, who knows? So everything should run to schedule here. You can let me know. Karen did a video for me of her library introduction, so we can not have class that week, or I can invite Karen to come to class and do the lecture live, okay? So have a think about that and just let me know. Do you want that week off out of the classroom, or would you like to, rather than watch her video, have her come in and do it to you, all right? So that you can ask her direct questions. This week, the 12th, is not a classroom week, because that's a week for you to be practicing using what you learned from Karen, okay?
So September 12th, we don't have the class?
No. If you want to meet with me that week at 4 or 4:30 or 5, just email me and let me know, right? But I'm not planning an actual formal class session that week. Same for the 3rd of October. right? And then once we get down to the end of October, the rest of the semester until the presentation weeks is for you to work on your annotated bibliographies and your presentations, and you need to be coming in and meeting with me, or the distant students need to be Skyping with me so that we can work on those. Send me drafts and say, what does this look like? Things like that. Okay? So the 5th and the 12th are the days that hopefully everybody can be here in person, either live in the classroom or live on Collaborate. Okay. All right. All right. Hopefully some of you have done that reading that I had up there to give you a little bit of idea leading into today. And just to let you know, this is how this is sorted out. The week 1 folder has today's PowerPoint, some other readings around what we'll cover today, and the reading that you're expected to do by next week. Okay? And I'm so out of practice, I've forgotten that. Okay. So I'll be doing this without a clicker, which means I'll be running backwards and forwards, getting my exercise over there. Okay. All right, we've been through the syllabus. It's so long since I've done this in class, this is incorrect. I'm filming this and I will put it up onto YouTube, and I'll have a HPE 502 Fall 2019 folder, and I'll put the link to that folder in Blackboard. And it will be under lecture class notes on the left-hand side, which you can't see at the moment because that's hidden. Okay, I just have to try to remember how to download this into YouTube after class. So that will be fun. Okay, so I already had a question, which I think most questions are valid, from a sports admin student saying, well, I'm a sports admin student, why do I have to do research, right? And the immediate answer to that is it's a graduate program. You can't take a graduate program anywhere that's worth its name without there being some research involved. I mean, that's the nature of graduate work, right? So it's one of the, depending on the rigor of the undergraduate program you've come from, it's, for some people, one of the big differences between their undergraduate work and their graduate work is that now all of a sudden, they're expected to find and report on real research, okay? So when you read a research paper, all it is someone had a question that they wanted to find out something about, and they went out and found it out, and now they're reporting it, all right? That's all it is. It's just the answer to a question, okay? In grad school, when you write papers in any of your other classes, the reason we like you to take this class in first or second semester, preferably the first if you can, is because when you write your other papers and you are going to discuss something or argue a case for something, you're expected to back up your argument with peer-reviewed research, right? Because our opinion doesn't count, my opinion doesn't count, right? If I write an article or I write a paper, I have to reference other people's research to support what I'm saying, right? If I say, oh, the sky is blue, I have to have some research to support the sky is blue, right? I can't just say it and expect that to be okay. That's not how it works in grad school, okay? So we want to use it to expand what we understand about a topic. So, as I said, once you've done the library lecture and you understand how the databases work, then that you can start digging in and going, well, what am I interested in, right? It might be obvious that you're interested in basketball, softball. What's your sport? If you have a sport.
I just.
Or dance.
Zumba back then.
Zumba, right? So there's plenty of research out on Zumba if that's, or you might want to look at children's movement development, or you might want to look at the effect supplements have on people, or you might want to look at a particular training program and whether it works or doesn't work, right? Or, since you're sports admin people, you might want to look at some kind of ethnicity or sexism issue within sport hierarchies, right? I mean, there's anything, there's no limit except in here to what you can go out and find out about, right? So when we do research and we publish it, we do that because I found something I think is so cool and I want everybody else to know about it, right? And we sometimes have to do it in order to keep our jobs, right? Or you have to do it for credit in a class, right? So it's just fascinating research. I mean, once you get into the databases, you can spend hours in those things. You might want to start setting a timer. Like if you're really geeky about reading and learning, then those things are a time suck like nothing you've ever known, right? So you might want to set the timer on your phone and go, okay, I am only going to research for an hour. Because when I was in grad school, I would go, we didn't have so much electronic databases, we had to go and pull real journals, but hours would go by, right? Because you start looking at one thing and you see, and you go, oh, that's interesting, let me go look at, and before you know it, 3 hours have gone, right? So just be warned that it can get a little addictive, all right? So if you manage to get the reading done, okay, then you will have read, when I say page 8, do I mean page 8 in here or? Yes, I do. All right, then you'll have read a little bit from this first chapter in the APA manual that tells you about the types of articles. So this is just one breakdown of the types of articles. If you go online and look, you might find, like, in some lists you'll see a category they call historical articles, right? They don't have that in the APA manual, but it depends which categories you're looking at, okay? So this is a definitive list, but since it's in the book, this is the one we're going to use for class, okay? So a lot of the research that we read is empirical, okay? And empirical means that there was data collected, okay? So empirical then can be subdivided into whether it's basic or applied, okay? Basic research is often done within a laboratory setting. So for example, if you're reading an exercise physiology article, then they may be running the testing in a lab on a treadmill in a controlled environment with heart rate monitors and whatever on them, right? That would be basic. Or you could read an article where they've got the athlete running or the person out on the track running sprints or running miles, and they're testing their heart rate, and you know, it might be hot or it might be windy or it might be right, that would be applied, right? Out in the real world. And very often for us, because we're more an applied degree than we are a pure degree, you know, we don't do a lot of lab stuff, then often the stuff we're interested in tends to be the more applied, right? For me, reading the basic stuff gets a bit heavy, right? It's like, well, this is all very interesting, but I don't really care about rats running on a wheel, right? Or the fact that you chopped a cat up and you pulled its muscle out and it did this doesn't mean that a human reacts like that when you do that, right? So I really like applied stuff quite a lot more. And so often the questions for basic are quite abstract and they just come, you know, it was just something someone went, oh, let's test that. The applied tends to take that and then go, well, okay, but it's a rat, or it's a cat, or it's a goat, or it's a person, but they're in a controlled environment. What happens for an athlete, or a trainer, or the kids on the school playground, right? And then we're going to start talking about quantitative versus qualitative, and we'll do that in a lot more detail later on. Quantitative involves numbers, so they collect numbers, they're comparing numbers. Qualitative is more touchy-feely, and I've lost my qualitative researcher, so I might get her to Skype you that week and to give us a Skype interview. And qualitative is more about emotions, feelings, finding out how people respond to something cognitively rather than physiologically, perhaps. Okay? And as I said, we'll dive into the differences between those two in a lot more detail as we move on. Okay, so we have to have this talk just to warn you, let you know the consequences of plagiarism, okay? Plagiarism depends, again, which definition you take for plagiarism, but it basically means that you use someone else's words or ideas, and you do not give them credit for it, okay? It's a really big no-no in grad school. It's such a big no-no that if you go and look at your graduate catalogue, the consequences are really severe. At best, you'll get an F on the piece of work, or an F in the class, and at worst, if you perpetually and you don't correct the problem, they'll dismiss you from grad school. All right, it's that bad. Okay, so understanding plagiarism is a little tricky because you might read an article and use some of the article and forget to cite it. That's technically plagiarism, but did you do it on purpose? Probably not, right? So that's a different case to leaning over your mate's shoulder and copying what they're writing and handing it in as your piece of work, right? So what I would say is, A, make sure that you read this information because it'll give you a good groundwork of what it means, okay? I don't want to discourage you from working together, right? Because some people like to work with a partner or in a group and do group studies and help each other out. Some people prefer to work on their own. It doesn't matter. The thing about the group or the partner thing is it's okay to discuss what we're doing in class and discuss the problem and have conversations about it, but you have to do the work separately. got to be separate. If I get papers that look very similar, both people will get a 0. And it happens in grad school. I've done it, right? So I don't like doing it, okay? So I'm not saying don't work with your friend or work with your GA mate, but when you actually do your writing, that has to be done on your own, okay? Then, if you're using a paper, and that's the whole point, is that we're learning how to use the research in our own writing, then I'll teach you how to cite that properly. So you say, the sky is blue, open brackets, author name, author year, close brackets, and you keep going. Or you say, Mr. Smith, 1972, said the sky is blue in this paper, right? So you give credit to the person that you found the research from, okay? Be careful if you're using review articles or if the paper you're reading is citing someone else. Because technically, if you want to use that piece of information, you should go and find the original piece of research. At master's level, that one is a little less held strongly, right? Because we're just trying to get you to cite and use the research. If you move on to the PhD level, you would be expected to go and find the original source, not use the secondary source, okay? Does that make sense? So sometimes, like what we'll do with the template, you want to read it, put it down, write it in your own words. Go back and see whether what you wrote matches, right, not copies, but that you've got the information correct from what you read. Okay? Or read the article, stick it in a drawer, go away, come back the next day, read it again, turn it over, however, right? When you read an article 5 or 6 times, this is a problem, right? Because you read it 5 or 6 times, you put it down, you start writing, and I look at it and I go, that's a direct quote from the paper. You're like, no, I put the paper away. I didn't copy the paper because you've read it so many times. Now when you're typing, it feels like your own words are coming out of your fingertips when actually it's the words that were in the paper. So you have to be a little bit careful, but that's part of the learning curve, okay? So APA, the bane of our lives, right? Some of the rules are obvious, like how do I cite an author in a paper, or how do I write a reference list, okay? There are rules in here for things you would never think about, right? How many spaces do you put after a period? Well, it depends what you're typing. If you're typing a reference or a citation, it's 2. If you're typing sentences, it's 1. Why is it different? Who the heck knows, right? How do you shorten minutes? Do you shorten minutes? Is it mins, min? Does it have a full stop? Should there be a gap between the number and the min? Or no gap between the number and, right? It's all in here. You just have to find it. And you just have to, when you write, you just have to go, you know what? There's going to be a rule about that. I'm going to find it. It's crazy. I will try to give as much as I can to you over the course of the semester. Some of APA, like I can do a reference without looking at this, unless it's an online one, right? I know some of the shortened versions. I know quite a lot of the statistical versions, right? So if you're doing a a statistics piece and you've got a P value, then the P has to be small, lowercase, and italicized with a gap before the less than, with a gap, with a point over, right? I know that because I've done it for a long time. I don't have to look that one up. But do I have to shorten years, hours, and minutes, months? I can't remember because they say yes for some of them and no for others. So I have to look it up every single time. You cannot learn this book. Don't even try. Right? Just carry it with you all the time. The athletes, if you go on the road and you have homework to do, take this with you. Right? Don't just take the textbook for the class, because you cannot get APA right without this, or without a good internet connection that you can get to Purdue Owl. Right? The details are important. I mean, that's all there is to it. If you miss out a comma, then it's wrong. Right? So commas and spaces and all this nonsense is important. Some professors, I'm not sure about how Dr. Yun and Dr. Guerra feel, but I know some professors feel that APA and having grades attached to APA is ludicrous because none of you write without the use of the internet and help anymore, right? I disagree, because I think being a grad student involves attention to detail. It's part of being a grad student, right? You have to expand your knowledge. You've got to come in with a desire to do the best piece of work you can. And attending to detail, learning the detail in APA, trains you to pay attention to the detail in other things that you do, right? In my view. So, you know, we all have to use it. If I submit an abstract for a conference, I have to use APA. There's no getting away from it if you stay in health and wellness and you want to present or publish or go on to a PhD. Right? So we just have to deal with it. And it really is. It's like, if I sleep with it, is it like osmosis? Does it just kind of soak in? It's such a nuisance. Right? The key is, right, that have a go, send it me, or bring it in to me as a draft, and I can circle the things that you need to go back to the manual and review before you hand in the final copy, right? Because again, I can't expect you to get it right. You've got to learn, and that's what I'm here for, is to help you learn. So the more often you bring me a draft of something, the more often I can show you the tricks to getting it right. Yeah.
So you're saying, as far as us bringing the drafts or for our stuff, when is a good time to bring that? Before class, during class, after class, office?
What I would say, so the deadlines on everything, I think, is Saturday at 11, right? So you've got an APA citation reference due Saturday at 11 this week, plus a summary. If you want to give it a really good shot tomorrow morning and get it to me at lunchtime, I actually have meetings. I've got class and meetings, but I will do my best to get it back to you Friday afternoon or Saturday morning so that you can correct what you're doing before you send it in as a final. If I send it back to you late, I will tell you you get a day's extension, right? If you need a day's extension, email me and ask for it. Don't hand the work in late, because then you get a deduction, right?
Via Blackboard or
Via Blackboard.
Would you prefer us to hand in the drafts in person or email?
If you have the time to come to the office and do it in person, I mean, I like that because I like the interaction with you, you know. But if you don't have the time and you want the feedback, then email it to me. Blackboard will allow you to attach one document only to an email. So later on in the semester, you're going to either have to combine things into one document or send me more than one email. It's a bit of a nuisance. I don't know why they don't change that feature. Right. So, APA references. As you can see on my book, I have little tabs. The one that I used for grad school had more tabs than this in it. I had the previous version for grad school. But these are the page numbers that you need for trying to get these references correct. Okay? And the details are tricky. If you're citing or referencing a peer-reviewed journal article, then the title of the article is not italicized, but the journal name is italicized. If you're citing a book, the title is italicized and the publisher isn't italicized, right? So you've got to make sure that you're looking at the right piece of information. When you're looking at the examples, find the one that is the closest to the piece of work you're trying to reference. Yeah.
Okay, so just so I have an understanding, when we're writing our papers and stuff like that, like I know you're saying refer back to the book all the time, but how do we know when to refer to the book?
That's why I like the draft, because if you get it wrong, I can point you to it in the book. Honestly, everything has a rule. Everything. Like, you have to double space, except in my template, because there isn't room in the template. But anything you do should be double spaced. It has to be 12 point. It has to be a serif font. Easiest rule of thumb, just use Times New Roman. Right? So there are all these little things. You can spend ages trying to find them. Or you can just email me. And depending on how easy it is to find it in here, I might say, go have a look first. If you can't find it, come back to me. If it's something like the serif, I'll tell you because I know you won't find it because it's tucked all the way back here on page 100 and... Way, way back. Oh, I've lost my tab. It's hidden at the back somewhere. So, you know, give it a go. They do have, usefully, quite a good index at the back of the manual. So you can quickly look in the index and see if you can find something relevant to the question you have. Okay. So let me do an example. And when I was in grad school, we could not use, well, there wasn't really any online stuff, so I'm not very good with the